Welcome to On Our Way with Beryl Botman in conversation with Laurie Gaum. I met Laurie while he was facilitating a workshop on sexuality and gender, and I learned so much from him and the context. Today we will talk about that and what his career means in society. Enjoy our conversation. Laurie, it's so good to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here.
Yes, this conversation I really am looking forward to, where you speak about a very important topic in the, and not as a topic, but as important aspect of life. And I want to start our conversation with the first experience that was the closest that I ever came to you was a workshop that I attended, and you and your team presented the issues on sexuality and gender. And I think those, especially distinguishing between the two terms, sexuality and gender, if you could do that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was the seminal year of 2020, actually, at the
Yes.
beginning of that year, just before COVID hit in
Yes.
March. Um, you were courageous enough to sign up for that workshop because we were in a
Yeah.
experimental phase.
Yes.
It's very experiential work.
Yes.
So we convened a space around faith and spirituality, with research that has been done. Some of my colleagues was also co-facilitating, and that was really to reflecting on faith spaces, church spaces that's often not inclusive, that's not welcoming to everyone, wherever they are. And so we were creating a space for reflection around that, and therefore storytelling for people of different sexual orientations, gender identities, and expressions to meet and to be able to listen to each other's stories and experiences shared firsthand, and then get to understand each other better and grow into respect and even becoming allies, so that one could make faith spaces actually more inclusive at the end of the day. And that was in Guguletu. That was my
Yes.
first congregation, actually, long time ago. So it was lovely to be there again. There's such a lovely space as well, the community center that they've
Yes.
developed there. And it was a first off that we were launching this work, or this specific way that we put together this workshop, which is linking on to other work called Gender Equity and Reconciliation, which draws on the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, um, and applies it to gender and sexuality. But our focus was specifically sexuality, and therefore, Pumla Gobodo Madigisela said of the TRC that it makes public spaces intimate. And so, that's why we met on a quite an intimate
Yes.
way, because
Yes.
you're asked to share really your
Yes.
your life experiences, and to be open about it, and to be vulnerable about it.
Yes.
And that was a lovely thing, because I do think also straight people often doesn't come so easily to these conversations, just like
Yes.
in the race conversation.
Yes.
Whites doesn't come to the party so easily because they feel they don't have a story, or
Yeah.
they come from the wrong side of the conversation. And in the gender conversation, women feel the impact of gender inequality and so on more on their skin and on their
Yes.
bodies. And similar predominantly straight people, come in a different way to a conversation about sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, because they don't need to please explain their lives forever already, So that's why it's so wonderful that people from different sides could come and really open themselves up to each other and meet on that holy ground.
You know, Laurie, when the invitation came, I was, at that time, I was on the church council, and I am in that congregation of Rondebosch United Church, where we, as part of our community, we want to be known to be inclusive, we want to be known to be welcoming. And when that invitation came, I took it because I also realized that there's much that I have to learn. I have to broaden my perspectives. And the thing that I actually came to learn in the workshop, I learned much more about myself, which I didn't initially set out to do. I learned about my sexuality, thinking about it and reflecting on it. Um, I asked earlier, or I mentioned earlier, that it is not always clear to people that there is a difference in meaning between sexuality and gender. And some people think that neither of those has pertained to them. But all of us are sexual beings, and we have um, ascribed roles in terms of gender. How do you differentiate between those two concepts? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just starting off by saying that, for us as queer people, sometimes we're expected from the beginning to please explain our lives and how is it now different from the
Yes.
normative,
Yeah.
and that's a bit tiring. And therefore, in this conversation, when you open it up to sexualities,
Yes.
wherever, whatever angle you're coming from, then there's such a lot more that can be discussed. There's such a nice conversation that can emerge when we all open up about our sexuality and our sexual lives, because we all do, of course,
Yeah.
straight people too, or
Yes.
people on a different place on the continuum, if you want to call it that, the fluid scale between same-sex attraction and opposite-sex attraction, as well as then on the gender scale, because in some of our other work, the gender equity and reconciliation work, we originally brought specifically women and men together, and nowadays, of course, we say people of all genders, um, so that people could hear across that divide how people really feel and how what they experience and how they can listen to each other. Um, but so it's that's the one fluid scale between gender expression of and identity of being female or male on the other side, and everything, all the possibilities in between
Yes.
where people are. And therefore, for some straight people, it has been a revelation that they actually also have a gender identity,
Yes.
because of course,
You
indeed,
have.
they do
Yes.
have, we all
Yes.
do
Yeah.
have, we're somewhere on that scale. And so that's a very good learning, I think, that
Yeah.
people discover, and they, when they're inquisitive enough about life, like you've clearly
Yeah.
been when you came, you
Yes.
signed up to explore these things, and you had an openness to do so. On the sexuality side, of course, it can be the specific orientation that one has, whether that is same-sex attraction or opposite-sex attraction or bisexuality. Also, several other things that people nowadays use as ways to describe their experience better. And then also, then our sexual expression, of course, is also something different still.
Yes.
So it's our sexual orientation, it is our sexual lives, as you mentioned just now, that, yeah, it can be brought forward for reflection, like all aspects of life. And you've said it so
Yes.
beautiful at the beginning, that it's an integral part of our lives, and it's
Yes.
something that we often are unaware of. And if we are not, we don't get the opportunity to unpack it a little bit and
Yes.
think about it, then it stays sometimes in the closet or
Yes.
wherever, and while it needs a little bit of air for reflection
Yeah.
and for the light to come in.
And sexuality is, I can't even say especially in the church, but sexuality in general in society, our communities, and even in our home is not a conversation that we openly have. And if we don't have that conversation, it's not something that we necessarily think of and are critical about. And at that juncture in my life, I had become a widow. And so my sexuality changed. I had a partner, I no longer have a partner. How do I think about my sexuality? What do I do with my sexuality? And those kinds of things needs some exploring and needs a place for conversation and thinking. And so I really appreciated that opportunity. And I went with that quite in the foreground of my decision to take up that offer
Yeah.
as a way of me re-evaluating and rethinking now. What do I do? How am I? Who am I in terms of
Yeah.
my sexuality? And where else can one have those conversations in society if church is the only place that you actually get to be in a group of people to talk about serious things um, about the church? And
Yeah.
so that was a wonderful opportunity. So I learned so much
Yeah.
besides that.
Yeah.
The one thing that is becoming a standard joke
Yeah.
in my family and amongst my friends is my ignorance about not thinking about the question of pronouns. Now, of course, we all have pronouns, but when we were introducing ourselves in the circle, we had everybody started. Luckily, they didn't start with me. And then I heard everybody say he, she, they, them. I thought, oh, we get to choose new pronouns now. I'm very lucky. So when it got to me, I said we. Nobody blinked an eye. It's only afterwards that I discovered that it's not really an option. And it was the standard joke that I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe I must think about my pronoun in a new way and choose a totally new one. That's why I chose we. And then when I discovered that it was not an option, I and I truly thought about it. And you had a follow up reflection session at our church about our experience during that week. And in our circle, we said, what is it that you learned? And that was the one thing I then said. I know I made a mistake, but I think I'm still sticking with my we. And even after that, now that it's become, I spoke about it in the conversation I had with Catherine, my daughter-in-law. I kept on thinking about it, and I started reading about the history of pronoun and how in Latin and Greek there were many, many more differentiations in pronouns than what we have about the gender, a differentiation, the plural and the
Yeah.
singular. And what fascinates me and what I find actually very comforting is how we're evolving on that level, because it also gives me a sense that we are evolving as society and we're becoming closer. I actually feel we're coming closer if we are using less pronouns. So maybe we're moving towards the plural
Yeah.
for all of us. And there
Wow.
are other languages that have that kind of system. So maybe it's not just a matter of pronouns, it's a matter of us. It's a matter of who we are and how we see ourselves and how we see
Yeah.
others. Yeah.
You just now actually described so beautiful how it can be if people come from different sides to the conversation and they bring what they are, who they are, and exploring their own experience of sexuality. Um, my queer sexuality, your straight sexuality, whatever it is, and then there's such a lot of universality that
Yes.
one can tap into, that cuts across, that makes us connect as human
Yes.
beings, because then there's similarities. Maybe, I've had an experience of trauma in my life, as you did with the
Yes.
passing of your husband, Russell. Then we can connect on that level,
Yes. Yeah.
around that. When I've had an experience of divorce in my life,
Yeah.
it makes me tap into my vulnerability, and it makes me connect with you for where you are, and one is able to have this joint conversations which cuts across difference and actually connects us on a deeper level. And I think that really happens through your pronoun, your choice of pronoun also, because it reminds us that we are more than only the specific. Because for queer people, I know, this whole thing of coming out. I know some nowadays choose to say it's really allowing in or inviting in rather than coming out. But it's also coming into your own, so
Yes.
that people are able to name the precise experience, whether they want to call it something on the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, or whatever it is. But then I think it is very important that that particularity, which is good for our own process and which we need to celebrate, as we own it, then we also meet across difference. Because
Yes.
I'm queer and I do celebrate it and I love to be with queer people, but I'm not only that. I'm
Yes.
also so many other
Yeah.
things, and I'm a human being after all, and a being even after that, so I also need to connect with the greater whole and the different from me, so that I can be more whole myself,
Yeah.
I can be more we
Yeah.
as well, and be
Yes.
reminded that I'm not only one thing, I'm one thing as
As
well,
well.
and that
Yes. Yeah.
needs to be well integrated into my being.
Yeah.
But I also need to come home in the greater community of humanity.
You know what I also value about the work that you do is you bring out of us who participate um, issues and experiences that we have hidden. And in this society of ours where gender-based violence is rife and is a pandemic really, I didn't go there expecting to confront any trauma that I might have experienced in my life, but I did. And in that workshop, I realized I spoke about a traumatic experience that I've never spoken to anybody in my entire life. And so that work that you are doing is also very valuable. So your work is so much broader than being gay, not being gay, being trans, and all
Yeah.
of those things, and who is right and who is wrong. It's so much more of what we are and who we are and what has happened to us and what explains how we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as men, we are socialized to not be in touch with our emotions and not being able to express it. Although that's luckily shifting. I mean, if you look at some young people today, there's exciting examples of exactly the opposite, where people are in touch and they do
Yes.
express and so on. But so we're using the emotions for people to speak through that to their stories, and that's so important also in the whole yeah, arena of trauma, and the lots of trauma on many levels that South African society also sits with, and global society. um, we need to have the tools to really process.
Yes.
Um, and luckily, these tools are helping us to be able to talk to our experiences, tell our stories, get some relief, get a community that supports us in the process and listens to us deeply, which actually brings some of the healing which needs to take place. I've on Friday been with a group at Chrysalis Academy actually, and the introduction of the gender equity and reconciliation work we did there to a group of 200 young people just out of school, and they're part of a 3-month program. And I just,
Just tell us a bit more about that program and what
yes,
the work is.
yeah, so I mean, they at Chrysalis Academy
Yeah.
they have this amazing transition 3-month process where they really take people from where they are with their trauma, meeting them, and being able to introduce things like mindfulness, like yoga, some processing tools for them in their lives, um, and then being able to also get harder skills to get working opportunities and so on. But we integrate this gender equity and
Yes.
reconciliation work there. So it's part of the process, so that they also grapple and get to understand gender issues better, and sexuality issues. And it was such a lovely conversation where some people brought the whole question about how to handle gay advances being made to some of the guys there, and how uncomfortable they are with it, and how the homophobia is showing up. I mean, one could clearly sense that. But this was at the beginning of the 3 months that they are together, and this created the forum for discussion,
Discussion, yeah.
bringing that forward. And as you mentioned, these things that's hidden. um, our Christian tradition speaks about the truth that will set you free. So just enabling people to have those conversations and to visit themselves in the process, to find themselves, to formulate their stories, and to be able to tell it to each other, so that it is deeply heard and received and respected, and then they're able to, I think, shift behavior also where it's necessary, and really get a wonderful, um, next step for their lives.
Your engagement and your experience with all these uh, deep conversations that you have and conduct and facilitate with so many people of a range of backgrounds. How do you deal with it in your personal capacity?
Very good question. No, I know it's a privilege and it is holy ground where you meet people, where, and I thought of it of late again, that, to meet so honestly with other people. I mean, that's for me the most relieving experience, when I can feel, okay, I'm in my gut, I'm telling my gut story, yeah, and others are listening, are receiving it. So I also feel that my wholeness um, is brought in intact again, because through so many circles that I've sat together with men, with people of all genders, with women also included specifically, in a circle of equals, where we hear each other's hearts and listen for it, and then also being able to share one's own story and feel the reception of it. That has definitely lightened my burden. Sometimes it's very heavy stories of what people are experiencing in South Africa, and around the world. In the States, I've in particular also been part part of such groups, and in Kenya as well. We work quite internationally, but it's really a privilege to be there with people. And then I also take my time to walk on the beach, swim,
Yes.
to enjoy life, watch movies.
Yeah.
There's many things that I enjoy. I live broadly in the sense of, I like art. I like to go to exhibitions. Um, and yeah, that I try to live art almost, although I don't have a medium, so I've got a bit of frustration there. But it's really, yeah, and along with friends and so on, that's also supportive and loving and receives me for who I am. um, it's being able to shoulder the heavy burden together, and to see and feel with people, because I continue doing my own work. I know it's
Yeah.
not complete yet, but these spaces, I've got also to continue processing my own stuff and grow along with other people.
Yes. What else is there that you still would like to do, like to achieve? What do you dream of?
Well, I suppose I would like to do more writing. I hope you too.
I do.
So, so yeah, while I don't really see myself as a writer, maybe yet, maybe later, but yeah, I think there's still a bit more writing that can be done through me or by me or whatever. But as I say, I see myself as an artist of life, maybe a living art, and whatever that means, because I do feel there's a lot of uh, energy that I get from that sustains me and excites me. And
Needs to be explored.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, bringing this crucial conversations, opportunities for people to heal. I think that's such a profound um, opportunity for me to, to facilitate that and to be part of the healing journey along with others, and to to you bring all of us to the next level of in in our country that needs a lot of healing. Yeah, that is the journey.
Thank you, Laurie. This was such a wonderful conversation to have, such an important one. And I want to thank you and wish you well with all the deep work that you are doing, and wish you well for yourself as well in your development. Thank you for joining me.
Appreciate so much, Beryl. It's lovely to be with you. Thank you for this space.
Thank you for joining On a Way with Beryl Botman in conversation with Laurie Gaum. Walk tall, tell it all. You've been listening to On a Way with Beryl Botman in conversation. My books are available online and from me directly. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram to learn more about my book talks and appearances. Feel free to write to me at beryl.botman60@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.